or the rules of polite society for that matter. These have all been pretty big names, but we're going to end this season with a guy who is every bit the outlaw artist in his own way, but who never quite achieved that same level of fame. And to be honest, it just seems wrong that hardly anybody knows his name.
I'm going down to the ground station, gonna get a ticket to ride with it all. Go down where people say y'all, sing a song with a friend, change the shape of their men, and get back in the game, start playing again.
He was the nicest asshole you'd ever meet. And that's something with his looks you'd never guess.
He was a very scary-looking guy.
Scary-looking guy, yeah. He even scared some of the bikers. Just a big old goon. When he started singing, you just completely lost all thoughts of what you thought when you first saw the guy.
I'd like to stay, but I might have to go to start over again.
Bet with somebody, a $100 bet with somebody that he could get kicked out of every bar that had live music in Austin.
Yeah, he literally got thrown out of every bar in town.
Met this character, Blaze Foley, back in 1977, and he had this guitar in this case that he wanted to show me. Actually, he wanted to sell it to me. And he came up to me and wanted to talk to me, like, in between songs, and he's like 6'3", 6'4", maybe. When I take a break, could we talk then? And a little later on, he showed me this guitar that he wanted.
He always had to borrow somebody's guitar to play most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know if he ever actually owned one.
I guess he sold that guitar to about 4 different people, and none of them ever got it. Valise with a bunch of stuff in it, and he would pull out pictures and say, well, here's the person from this song, and he'd play the song while the picture was being passed around.
One of the pictures he pulled out was of himself as a kid. For a little number he called Lindsay Horton was in automotive. Blaze, or Michael Fuller as he was known then, worked in paint and hardware. He was a big kid from Malvern, Arkansas, who had a thing about his weight and his name, apparently.
Deputy Dog, of course, was destitute, so I went with him a few places around trying to sell the guitar. Someone said, well, you know, Kinky Friedman buys a few little runs of this and that and whatever on it, and I said, well, thank you very much for showing me your guitar, and got it.
When we went to a Willie Nelson concert, and somehow we ended up right in front of the stage with this guitar. At some point, Willie Nelson, you know, sort of leaned down, and Deputy said to him that time that he was working on the name, Blaze Foley. It's just like, you know, watching someone being born. We was in love. At some point, I thought that it was probably time to introduce him to the folks. I'd gone to, you know, Planned Parenthood and asked for an IUD, and my body couldn't tolerate it, so they removed it, and they gave it to Blaze, and he put it in his ear, you know. And my mother, God bless her, she takes one look at Blaze, turns around, goes into the bedroom, starts crying. They really couldn't resist him.
Pretty blue eyes.
I always got the impression he just slept on people's couches all the time, you know? And that must have been a horrible feeling. But he seemed to be comfortable with it.
Harold Eggers spent 20 years booking Townes Van Zandt and trying to stay sane. He tried.
You know, it's like, oh, sure, man, we can keep a lid on Townes and too, you know, but to be honest with you, there's no lid for those guys. It was, they were full tilt.
If the two of them weren't bad enough, they used to run around.
Liked it more than anybody else.
Leland Waddell claims that his side business kept him in skins and sticks as a drummer.
I met this guy. This is the best thing of all. It's like, goddamn, what I have to worry about money? I can actually make fucking speed.
That was Waddell in 2000.
And so Townes called me and said, come on over, Blaze is here, man. We got some Kamchatka vodka. Come on over, man. So I went over there to Townes's, and the minute I showed up, Janine, who's Townes' wife. So Townes says, hey, man, I'm gonna die pretty soon. I want you and Blaze to go out and help me find a grave site. Let's go today, because I know I'm gonna die any minute. So I said, sure, man, let's go take a look. Well, we went to Texas Cemetery, where all the senators looked over. He said, man, there's a cemetery right there. So we said, all right, let's go take a look. Well, Blaze stumbled out, sat down on a gravestone. Townes couldn't walk. So Blaze grabbed his, we went to the back of the cemetery. And as we went over that hill, there was an encampment of homeless people right at the edge of the cemetery. So finally, we found you the one we like. What do you think about this? Well, by that time, he was totally out. So I told Blaze, I said, well, let's go back, get in the car and go get some more booze, and we'll come back and get him. Blaze says, hey, man, I think we did all right, don't you?
Townes went on to live another 16 years. Larry Monroe was a local DJ who frequented the outhouse and became friendly with Blaze.
It would wake Blaze up just momentarily, and he'd kind of rouse up, and he'd hit his head on the underside of the pool table, and then he'd just sprawl back out and go back to sleep.
When I met Townes, I was just kind of thrown into Townes' world overnight, and one of the first things we did was go find Blaze. And he was sleeping under that pool table. Actually, I was quite frightened. You know, I'm like, what in the hell?
Blaze also had another kind of bizarre habit.
Duct tape lapels. And...
Yeah. This craze developed around the movie accoutrements, as Blaze would call it. Silver collar tips and hundreds of dollars on these pieces of silver when duct tape was almost as good. So he started duct taping his collar tips and his boot tips. And then it took off from there.
Cowboy boots, nobody questioned it.
I mean, I never asked him about the duct tape. Maybe that duct tape was the only thing holding them together.
And I remember one time my car had broken down, so he generously said, oh, you can use my car. So Townes and I and some other girl were out partying all night. Our avocado green wood panel Esquire station wagon on the other side of the road, and it jumped, and we couldn't figure out which car was whose afterwards. But then one of the first people on the street after the wreck is Blaze. And I'm standing in the medium crying, and I'm a home wrecker, because he lived in the car. I'm a home wrecker, I wrecked your home. And so
by 1978, Townes Van Zandt was working on his 7th studio album. Blaze couldn't get arrested. Well, in the figurative sense, at least.
Contracts. So him and Harold had gone around and around and around about selling his soul to the devil, you know.
Oh, there it is, man. Now you own me like everybody else.
So Harold one night says, okay, I want to do a video on the front porch with Blaze. I was like, you bet, man, no problem. And he's got that album cover sitting here beside him on the chair. And Harold says, well, hold up the album, talk about it, you know, and you got to straighten up. Come on, this is serious, you know.
At the height of Houston's oil boom, Gurf Morlix remembers that Blaze found some money guys to back his first real studio session.
It was an oil trading company named Zephyr Records who were looking to... Kinky invited Blaze to come to New York City and open for him, and so Blaze talked Zephyr Records into buying him a ticket, and of course it was a disaster. Good. Amphetamines and binge drinking. He just had this amazing ability to fuck it up.
I'm playing If I Could Only Fly for the first time, and both of us crying, and, you know, I see that song as sort of a lament about the consequences of rootlessness. You know, he was saying, this is who I am.
When I go again,